Welcome everyone. My name is Jen Sharon, NHIA's Chief Operating Officer and your moderator for today's 6th education session in NHIA's summer series, The Art of Intake. Now, I've worked with some pretty amazing intake coordinators, and to say intake is intake is an art is an understatement. The summer series is focused on providing you with free education and CEs that you would have enjoyed at our annual conference in April. Make sure to watch Infusion Express for upcoming sessions and registration links, or visit NHIA's new website. Click on Learn CE Education and Summer Series to register for future events or catch up on education you missed. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders. The presentation is available for download from the handout section of the navigation pane, as well as the speaker bio. The webinar will be recorded. A link to the recording will be emailed to you following the conclusion of the webinar and will also be available via NHIA's website within the next 24 hours. In order to receive CE, please follow the link in the follow-up email and answer a short quiz. Following the presentation, we will have time to answer your questions. Please submit your questions via the question tab in the navigation pane at any time during the presentation. Okay, now on to our presentation. Our speaker today is Kim Rebuth, from the Quality Assurance Manager from Kaba Fusion. Kim, I know you have a lot of great information to share, so let's get started.
Thank you, Jen, for that introduction. Welcome, everybody, and good afternoon and good morning. My name is Kim, as Jen said, and I am the Intake Quality Assurance Manager at Kaba Fusion. I'll take a few minutes just to give you a little bit of background. I've been with the company for 18 years, and I have always worked in an intake position, which has led me to start this department of the quality assurance for the entire company of Kaba Fusion, which oversees all of the processes and the policies that the company has implemented. So with that being said, I do feel like I have some helpful information that might make your department or bring back to your intake department maybe a little bit of helpful tips and tools to work together as a team to be even better than what your company already is. So as an agenda today, we're going to review. I will talk a little bit about intake, just an introduction for those that maybe not know exactly what intake actually does or what's entailed to it, how to build a relationship, maintain your relationships, and we'll wrap it up with a conclusion, examples, and some Q&A. Introduction to intake. So let's get started. What is intake? So we all know what intake is. Intake is your customer service in your company that is providing and processing all of the referrals that your sales managers are bringing in. So the biggest part is, what does intake do? So your intake department is starting with verifying your benefits, approving the services that have been provided to you, maintaining that relationship with that patient, with the insurance company, with the departments within your company, as also setting the bar for more to come. So with that being said, you want to make sure that your intake coordinators are all in the right positions. So we have to verify benefits, we speak to patients, we get authorizations, we do all of that stuff. However, the sales that has worked in that doctor's office, have they set some expectations and guidelines? And that's what I've noticed. But before we get to that, we are also counselors. So we're going to be talking about intake, providing counseling to your patients, financial, even down to wanting to do the infusion. And these days we have a lot of hesitation. So how are we going about this? How are we doing all of this as a team? And we'll also talk about validating that referral. Once your referral is validated, you have shown that that doctor's office, at whatever expectation your sales has brought to the table, they've been met. We also want to be very proactive, not reactive. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about how to reinforce your communication with your intake and your sales. So starting from the top, so we have your intake. Intake is probably maybe 2 or 3, maybe more if you're lucky, coordinators that work in a department that are processing all of your referrals. Now, one of the biggest things that I've seen the most is we'll get to that, building the relationship. So intake and sales, that's what starts it, number one. Your sales department is out marketing to all of the doctors to bring in the referrals to your company. Why? Your company is the best. We have the best pharmacists, we have the best nursing, we have all of it. And I'm sure you do. However, is your sales communicating back to your intake department that information of what they have set forth? So intake needs to build their own relationship with the referrals. And that is something that's important. Over the years, I built my relationship with the referral sources so that they can put a face to the name. I know that sometimes your sales managers like to hang on to the referrals and do all of the communicating themselves, but are we sure that the correct information is being given out? Are we sure that intake is communicating with your sales manager exactly what's going on, or is somebody holding on to something? So let's talk about building the relationship. When a referral comes in, has your sales department spoken to your intake department? And have they told them what they're marketing, who they're marketing, what that doctor's expectation is? Because intake is going to treat each referral exactly the same, as they should. Each referral should be reviewed as if it's the first referral from that doctor's office, and therefore every patient after that gets treated the same. So set that bar right from the beginning. Your sales department and your intake have to work hand in hand. So with intake, you're expert of intake, right? Do we have, everyone has that one intake representative that works in the department that just seems to be getting all the calls, or the sales manager uses that one particular intake representative all the time? Why? Is it because they just know how to process the referral the way you like it, or the way the doctor likes it? Or is it that that person just knows how to maneuver through the insurance company and get those approvals and get those clear benefits? Well, that information should be every intake rep. Every intake coordinator should be an expert at what they're doing. But not every intake rep is great at talking on the phone and talking to patients, building those relationships, and that's okay. What's important is that your sales and your intake are very transparent. When intake is building a relationship with the referral source that you have brought to the company, sometimes bringing them on a sales call is helpful. And why? It's helpful because you have two experts from your company that is now approaching your referral source or your doctor, and you are setting the bar and saying, this is the person that's going to work on all of your patients. So let's talk about if you have any questions about benefits or authorization, or do you have any patients that maybe you haven't been able to get approved over the past? Well, here's your expert right here. That shows team building, and it shows that we are one team. The sales rep just is not coming in and trying to sell your company. They're selling the service that you provide. You've worked very hard at getting top-notch pharmacists, top-notch nurses. You have top-notch intake coordinators. So show them, let them shine. If that will be a trickling effect, because that one intake rep who gets all of those referrals given to them or gets all of the calls sent to them, that's going to start a trend, because then their colleagues are going to want that same reaction. They're going to want that same attention. Why is he or she getting pointed out? Why is he or she? I do the same thing. Well, maybe not so. There's always that extra step that intake should go for. If you're not, then maybe this position isn't the best for you. And I know that's not the nicest to say, but in this business, your first call is your one and only shot to meet that bar that sales manager has set at the doctor's office. So you need to feel confident and know what you're talking about. And you want to show that referral source that we are going to treat your patient just as if it's the first referral that we've ever received. Every referral gets treated like that. So once sales is landed, that account, maybe bringing in, like I said, your intake department or one key person to bring in to show the face to the name of the person that they've been speaking to. This is Kim, who you've been speaking to and who's worked on Mary Jones for you and got her approved. That's going to make a huge impact because now the referral source has another link to your company and has another face and another contact and another support system of someone that they feel that they can speak to and get to a little bit easier, maybe than the sales. Sales is traveling, they're usually out on the road, but your intake department is in your office from your hours of operation, from the time your doors open to the time that they close. So at any point in between that, your referral source can give your intake a call and get that answer that they need, or get that confident answer that they need, because you're allowing intake to build their own relationship with that referral source. So that also brings some positive to it. Not every sales manager likes to give the bad news when something doesn't work out. Not every referral is going to be successful. But if I have a relationship with that referral source, I have communicated with them directly, personally, leading up to that point. So when you're giving that maybe not so positive good news, it might be taking a little bit easier rather than, I don't know who this person is, but I want to speak to my sales rep. Or the sales rep giving that information and not maybe having a full understanding of why that negative outcome was given. That's when your intake is going to step in and be that support to your sales, be that team. Show the doctor that we're one team. We all worked on this and we all tried our very best. And that will show the referral source, maybe not at first, and maybe not right away, the doctor or the referral source will be overly excited to give you another one, but they are going to remember that it wasn't just an individual that called and gave me that bad news. It was the entire department that called me, that worked so hard on this and informed me of every step of the way. Sales doesn't have that kind of time to call the referral source every time intake is making a move and getting it approved or there's a hiccup. So maybe breaking down that barrier and letting your intake expand out a little bit and share their knowledge with the referral source could be beneficial. So being accessible to your referral sources is key, not just on the sales side, but on the intake side. We are the experts of the benefits. We are the experts of the authorization, denials, appeals. What do we need? What don't we need? What can we push and what can't we push? So building that confidence level with the referral source directly and having that key intake coordinator who is your leader in your department, speaking on behalf of everyone, could potentially lift up your remaining department. While every other intake is seeing how well your referrals are going and you don't seem to be overwhelmed and stressed out. What's so different? Well, the only thing that I did differently was I communicated what I did. And I told my sales managers every step that I took. And if my sales manager didn't understand what I was doing, I explained it to them. If I didn't know what my sales manager was doing, but expected me to do it, I raised my hand and asked a question, which leads me to one of the biggest misconceptions of the communication between sales and intake. Is while you're building that trust, you're also building the trust between intake and sales. Nobody likes, it's a very controlling department. Intake likes to control their referrals. And I can say that safely. We like to hang on to it and do it from start to finish. Because if we're gonna work this, we're gonna work the referral. Well, so does sales. Sales doesn't like to let go of their information either. So how do you break that down? Well, you break it down by talking to each other, telling each other every step of the way of what you're doing, so that the next one, both of you now are on the same page. Now our communication is getting a little bit more clearer. Now I know what you need. Now I know why you emailed me 4 times asking me for this one thing. It wasn't you, it was the insurance company that needs that. So training is of the utmost importance. Sales is the first department that is notified of any new therapy that's being rolled out in your company, other than purchasing or operations. Sales is the next one. The next department is your pharmacy department. You need to make sure that your pharmacists understand the therapy that your company is looking to roll out. Then the next department is nursing. We need to make sure that our nurses are qualified and trained on this new therapy that's being rolled out, or maybe a therapy that you're already doing, but something in addition to that. Where's intake? Is intake a part of that training session? Are they the ones that are right behind all of the rest of the departments that have been fully trained and updated on what your company is doing? That kind of sounds like no to me, because most of the time, intake is the last department to find out anything that's coming out within your company. Well, they're the biggest piece. And I'll name about 3 major things that intake should be number 1 on: billing, and reimbursement. And I say billing twice because we all know no matter how hard intake is working on getting that referral approved, if it wasn't approved correctly with correct codes, correct units, days, however it got broken down, then your company is going to take a huge hit on that reimbursement. Then what's going to happen? Well, your reimbursement's going to send an email to intake saying, we got paid half of what this referral was because this code is incorrect. This is the code you should have done. Well, let's go back to a week ago when we were talking about sales having the meeting with their training of the new therapy, the pharmacist, and the nurses. Intake wasn't a part of that. Intake got a little bit of a message that, hey, we're doing this new therapy. This is coming down the pipe, and be on the lookout. So there's your reactive response. You're going to wait for that sales manager to bring that first referral in with that unknown information and have high expectations. And that is where the lack of communication starts, right there. If your company is rolling something out in addition, new therapy in addition, however, intake should be a part of those first round meetings. This way, your key players are sitting in that meeting and telling you, we're going to have a problem with this insurance, or I don't have access to that insurance portal. All kinds of information will be provided that you probably weren't even thinking about when your company was decided to do a new therapy, but your intake was. Why? Because they're the ones that are going to be responsible for getting that approved. They're the ones holding that bag. So if they don't know, and if they don't get the same educational training as the other departments, then how are you expecting positive results? How are you expecting your intake department to meet those guidelines? So here's how that happens. Your sales managers are out, and they are out and about all over the place. They know people from everywhere, and they run into people. They run into your manufacturers, AKA drug reps. They run into other sales managers from other competitors. And we all know that everyone is friendly out in the field, and we all know that we all kind of use the same companies and the same manufacturers. But who's going to be ahead of the game? Who's going to be the proactive company rather than the reactive company? Is it going to be you? Because it's not going to be us. Because when sales finds out a new therapy from that drug rep, AKA manufacturer, they are looking for more business. They're looking to increase their allocation. So of course they're going to start talking to that sales manager. Guess what happens? That sales manager immediately calls their boss calls the next one and starts that ball rolling. But everyone forgot to call the intake and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. Not to say that intake is going to be the make or break of that situation, but they are the ones that are going to be holding that bag. And they're the ones that are going to be expected to come up with positive results. So educating every department at the same time is beneficial and crucial. Your reimbursement department is going to have a problem with your intake if your intake department has not been informed of anything new that your company is coming out with, because they can't bill the codes, the units are incorrect, they're gonna recoup this money because this form wasn't filled out, or this is the way it was supposed to be done. And yes, they did give us an authorization, but they only gave us a one-time courtesy authorization because of X, Y, and Z. So be proactive. Get your intake involved in any little change that your company is looking to do so that they can put more ideas on the table. Not every idea is valid, but at least it's out in the universe. One person needs to hear something. That's all it takes, is one person sitting at a table listening to one comment that's being made that could change your entire outcome that you might not have even thought of. You might not have even dreamed of it because it's not where your head's at. So building those relationships, talking to relationships from internal to external is crucial. As simple as it is crucial to the process, because everybody has to communicate. We're all doing this for the greater good of that patient. So why wouldn't you want to include as many people as possible? Why wouldn't you want to reach out and ask and build up your knowledge, build up your confidence that we can do this, we can't do that, but we can do this. So working together, whether it's solidifying that relationship with your referral source, solidifying your relationship with your sales, it can't go wrong because everybody is transparent. Nothing is held within that one person. When something is held by one person, it doesn't last a long time. You need a village to do this job. You need the pharmacy department. You need the nursing department. You need every department that your company has, not just intake. But intake's the only one that stands alone. They're the only ones that are just waiting for the outcome and hoping for the best outcome. Well, what if we all joined forces? And what if we all know what intake knows? Just like, what if intake knows what you all know? Then you won't have to sit and wait and with bated breath of what that outcome is going to be, because you're going to feel confident of what that outcome is going to be. My intake is trained. I have key players in that department. My sales and my intake department, they work cohesively. And when that outcome comes through with that approval that we all hope for, then my pharmacy and my nursing team is moving forward. So that brings you to an all-in-one service. How many times have we heard other companies or a referral source referring a patient, and that referral came from another company? The first thing intake's going to hear is, well, I talked to 5 different people. I didn't hear back from the 5 different departments that I was supposedly supposed to hear from. And that sends those doctors kind of a little crazy, because they don't want any negative phone calls back. The last thing they told their patient in their room or on their phone or on a televisit is, you are going to get a phone call from this company, who I highly recommend, and you are going to be taken care of. And I'll see you in 2 weeks, 3 months, depending on the therapy. That's the last thing the patient heard. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill. Not knowing, if you're in intake and you don't know that that's what that doctor said, 99% of the time that's what that doctor said. So intake should always start that referral right there. They should always start that referral, no matter if it's the 50th or the 1st. This is the first referral, and I'm going to treat it with kid gloves. Not that one that comes through because it happens to be a senior executive of a very well-known company or of celebrity, let's say. We've all had incidences where intakes received that call and they've talked about it, and sales has said to them, I need this with kid gloves. This is a very important referral. Every referral is very important. Every patient deserves that same treatment, no matter what. And if you have a solid intake team, you won't have to remind them of that. They will know, because they're filled with the education of what and the knowledge of what they're trying to get approved. They know and have a relationship with that doctor's office, so they already know the expectations that are supposed to be completed. And they know that this doctor is going to follow up with that patient. So every phone call made, every move that's made is of the utmost importance. Think about if you are doing something and you have no idea why, you have no idea who you're doing it for, and you're getting nothing in return. You're probably not going to put 100% towards it. You're going to think, well, it's my job, but I never know what happens. All I hear is what I didn't do. Well, what about the other side? What about changing the view and showing intake? This is the doctor's office. These are the patients that we're servicing. This is what we're doing. Follow through as that cohesive team. Show that referral source, I'm not just talking, we are doing, and we are actually doing what we say we're doing. Less than 10% of people actually do what they say they're going to do. And that's a fact. That doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. If you want to be successful, you have to put yourself out there. If you want this to be a successful department, if you want to succeed in sales and achieve those higher numbers, if you as an intake manager want to stand out with the elite team, then put yourself out there and demand that your intake department be a part of the operations. Demand that your intake works with your sales department, not just an individual, the whole department. Be that superstar team so that your intake is not standing alone by themselves and your sales rep is standing alone by themselves and you have a negative outcome and everybody's arguing. At the end of the day, benefits and authorization are tough in itself. Nowadays, to verify an insurance, you need a good solid 2 hours if you're doing a chronic referral. If you're doing an acute referral, 30 minutes. That's a big difference, but it's also a very big difference in a reimbursement rate too. So if you found out that your intake was only giving 30 minutes to a chronic referral and 2 hours to an acute, that probably wouldn't work very well because that's not time that's being invested properly. You want to make sure that when everybody is working on that referral, it's not just one person, it's the whole team. Your sales has set up your department and provided everything that is needed to make that referral successful. Your pharmacist, while your intake is securing benefits, is clinically reviewing that chart to make sure that if there's anything else that is needed for this to strengthen, now is the time to speak up. That's also going to show your referral source that there's no time wasted. We're moving on this. We're working as fast as we can, but as accurately as we can at the same time. So what happens when you get to the point of that referral and you have your authorization and everybody's communicated and everything's great, and now the brakes are hit because that big financial aspect is here? Well, I feel comfortable calling the referral source because I have my own relationship with them. And this is kind of complex. And I don't feel comfortable for sales really talking about the patient's financial situation. So I will call the doctor's office, which leads me back to the beginning, allowing intake to secure their own relation. How is it going to look if your sales is calling your referrals back and they have critical, crucial financial information of the patient that they have no idea what's going on? To their defense, it's not their job. It's not their responsibility. Some doctors' offices are not going to think that that's a good idea, that somebody that's not involved in their actual case has that. Goes back to intake, building that relationship. Well, now Mary at the doctor's office and I have a very good relationship, so I'm going to give her a call and I can speak to her on my level because she understands my challenge right now. She understands because she deals with it on her end. So where does that leave the possibility of an issue? Well, the second issue that you're going to hear about, other than sales and intake kind of button heads, is now we lost the referral due to the out-of-pocket. Well, intake has just spent 2 weeks on getting this referral approved. Sales has been in there, pharmacy, nursing, that team has worked on it. There's one little thing that got overlooked, and this is as simple as what I'm about to say. Did you speak to their financial out-of-pocket on that initial call? When you spoke to your patient on that initial welcome call, introduction call, however your company calls it, we all do it. Did they go over the finances at that time? Probably not. I don't know what their out-of-pocket is going to be. I don't know what's going to get approved. I don't know what claim they're going to, if you're going to adjudicate where their copay will be on their claim. You're correct, but there is a way that you can get around that. And the way that you can get around that is on how you present it to the patient. Give them a broad range. Give them an idea of what they're going to look like once this is approved. Because when you're talking to patients, my introduction is, I'm not going to see if I can get it approved, or, well, we'll see if it gets approved, then we'll work out the numbers. No, my presentation to the patient is, when I get this approved, I want you to be aware of what your charges are going to be. Can you afford it? This is where it could range from. I will not have an exact number until the approval comes through. But in the meantime, I want you to think about, what can you afford? Can you take care of this? They don't want to call, they're going to call the doctor's office, and they're going to be upset if you waited until the very end, after they've waited days and weeks for this life-saving therapy that their doctor has promised them. The sales has promised the doctor that you're going to get it approved. The doctor has promised the patient that this company is going to take care of you. But then this happens. Then the doctor gets upset. Now the sales is upset. Now intake is under the gun. Now they're under the fire. Now it's, well, where did you go wrong? What happened? What did you say? Well, they didn't say anything wrong. It's just in how you present things. If somebody comes at you and they're constantly, if they're curt, or if they're a loud talker, or if they're animated, you kind of get lost in the shuffle, and because you're very animated, and I'm losing my attention here. But if I capture your attention and I demand that you listen to what I'm about to say and pay attention, because I'm going to walk you through this, and I want you to understand what we are all trying to do for you, and that when we get to this point of the process, this is what's going to happen. So I want you to start thinking about if this is something that you can afford, or if this is something that you can't. And if it's something that you can't, then we'll go to step 2. Referrals, I've seen many of referrals get lost in the shuffle and get taken away from companies because the information was bird fed to the patients, which then gets bird fed back to the referral source, which then sales comes back and says, I just lost this referral. What happened with intake? Well, intake did the benefits, they did the authorization, they did all of the process correct. The only thing that happened was just when that information was given to the patient. And maybe that patient didn't expect that, or maybe that wasn't something that they were willing to listen about because they were under different expectations. Who knows? There's lots of reasons of why that gets to that point. But the one thing we go back to is, are you going to be proactive, or are you going to be reactive? Because now when you're at this point, you're going to be reactive. You're now going to have to dig yourself out. Doctors' offices don't want to hear about your financial troubles. So why not tell them? When your intake goes on a sales call with you and starts building that relationship with your referral source, they can talk to them on their level of what opportunities your company can provide to some of their patients that might not be able to financially afford the services. You can talk to them about manufacturer assistance, state assistance, all the way down to foundations. You can talk to them and say, There's a lot of ways we can help your patient, not just by saying, well, if you can't give me a payment plan, then I guess you're not going to get treated. No, you want to make sure that your doctor's office and your referral knows that your intake department is filled with different ways and opportunities to help your company salvage and recoup any monies that may have to be absorbed, or not even worry about your company, because there are tons of foundations and manufacturer coupons and copays assistance, even if it's for one fill, maybe it's for the whole lifetime of the prescription. Either way goes back to that education. Does your intake know that all of that's out there? Or does only 1 or 2 people know about that? Does your reimbursement know about that? Or does intake? Everybody should know what is out there, so that when your intake is working on that referral, something triggers them, whether it's the diagnosis, the brand, the insurance. If you're constantly doing a specific brand of something, I bet you that manufacturer has some type of rebate or has some type of copay assistance, and that works with your purchasing department. So intake can call and fill, or your purchasing can call and say, hey, this is what's going on, and we have X amount of patients on service and we need some help. I bet you that rep will come real quick to your location and probably see what they can do to help you out. That started with that lead intake person taking that initiative. Well, how do you get your intake to take initiative? How do you do that? Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody is out to do that. You're right, nobody is. But if you're in this department, if you're working in intake, then that should be. Because your main goal is every patient that comes across your desk needs approval and needs as much help as possible. That's the business that we're in. Our business that we're in is not, well, we'll see what happens. It's, I need to make this approved. I need to make this work. And we need to figure it out. So have that confidence. If you have that confidence, it's coming from your own company providing it to you. Purchasing, pharmacy, nursing, everybody is a part of this. It's not just one department. When intake is working with your referral sources and working with that patient and we're talking to them, that's when we're at our best, because we talk to patients like we know them, because we kind of do. We've talked to them for a week or two, or maybe we talked to them for an hour because we were in an acute situation. Either way, you have to be personable. To be an intake, you need to be personable and a chameleon, and a very quick one, because you never know who's on the other end of that call. Sales already knows what they're walking into in a doctor situation. They've met that doctor a million times. They already know what they're walking into. For intake, every patient is different. Every patient is in a different stage. Every patient might not even be in a good mood. But it's up to us and your intake department to change that. Capture that patient's attention right away. If you're answering the phone and saying, hi, may I please speak with Mrs. Jones? I'm not excited. I'm going to think you're a telemarketer. And all that work that we just put through, and all of that training, and all of the going to the doctor's offices and working with the nursing and the pharmacy department, it's gone, because I don't have that person's attention. But if I answer the phone, like with a Disney effect, and I say, good afternoon, may I please speak with Mrs. Jones? Sure, may I ask who's calling? My name is Kim and I'm calling from Caba Fusion. Your doctor referred you to my company and I would like to speak with you for about 20 minutes. Demand that attention. Let that patient know right from the beginning, how long are you going to keep me on the phone? Well, if you're in a chronic situation, I need minimum 30 minutes because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm doing, what this company is doing, how we're going to get there, how you're going to get there, and what to expect when I complete this. That is what the doctor told the patient is going to happen when you receive a call. So if you speak to the patient like that on the phone, they're already at attention. Then you talk to them and you work through the process. You tell them what is going on. If you tell the patient what's going on and you explain to the patient how this works, then maybe sometimes giving the negative or the bad information might not be as bad. It might not be that difficult. We explain benefits. We explain authorizations. We explain what an appeal means. They're very complex pieces to the puzzle. Not everybody understands them, and that's okay. But who does need to understand that is your intake department. And your intake department needs to understand that at 100% at all times, because there's no leeway, because your sales is out there giving high expectations. They have the confidence in the people that are standing behind them and doing the work. We just need to rise above it, and we need to show them that we do have that. Will it happen every time? No. Will it be successful every time? No. But the more you put that out there, the more you communicate, the more you have the right people in the right positions shining, is going to be more profitable for your business. I see so many times that there's an expert in benefits and authorization, but I don't do well with talking to patients. Okay, I understand that. Not everyone is meant or has that je ne sais quoi. That's okay. Find somebody that does. Work them up. Get them to work with you as a manager or as a team lead or any position, and say, okay, we need someone to spearhead this so that everybody else hears how you're talking to patients. How are you processing this referral? How did you get that authorization? How did you fight that insurance company? There is someone in your department that knows how to do all that. They just don't want to be in the limelight. Or maybe they do, and they're getting overlooked because they're just the go-to person. Well, you can have everyone in your department do that. You can have everyone in your department be those go-to people. If they're educated properly, if they're provided all of the same information that the rest of your company has, you take them out, show them off a little bit, let them spread their wings and spread their knowledge. It's going to be beneficial. Make your company stand out, because intake is a huge piece to the puzzle. Pharmacy is a piece to the puzzle. Nursing is a piece. They're all pieces. But if intake's not doing their job, then nobody's bringing that piece to the puzzle. You want to bring a sense of security. Sales is already secure in what they do. They wouldn't be in that position if they weren't. Intake, we're maybe a little bit quieter. Maybe we're a little bit shyer. Maybe we don't act that. Maybe it's a little bit difficult for us to get up on there and get into someone's face. We could do it over the phone. You can do it and build that confidence over the phone. Solidify and reassure your department and your departments together. Work together. Be cohesive. Work as a team, not individuals. Work as that team so that that patient gets on your service and they stay on your service. And every 3 months or every week when they do a follow-up appointment, they're speaking of you. they're speaking of that one intake person that they've been speaking to since the day they got their referral. Now the doctor looks good. Now the referral source is going to feel as if they made the right decision, as you knew in the beginning that they did. You're just wanting to make sure that you prove it. So intake is such a bigger piece to the puzzle, and not just authorization and benefits and make this go. It is all of it combined. We're holding the bag. We're the first face of the company. We're the ones that are going to make you get better by getting your authorization all the time. Or we're the ones that it's going to work with your doctor's office and continually treat you. It's a difficult position, and not everyone can do all of that. And that's understandable. That's why you look for those right candidates to pick up those pieces. Keep that bar ahead of you. You always want to be above that bar. You want to be proactive, not reactive. Sales already has their marching orders. They already know what they're going out and doing. Is your intake prepared? Do you have that information? Do you know what we need to get authorized? Do you know what it takes? Do we have the contract? Do we have the bodies to do it? Do we have the internet or the portals to get in? All of those little intricate details might get overlooked if you're not including them. If intake is included in parts of those decisions, then you're destined to be successful, because everybody is bringing their expertise to the table. How can you continually keep that going? Well, some of my little key pieces here that have worked and they're continually being used is make cheat sheets. Sales, hey, this is what I need in order to get your patients approved. This is what I need you to bring back to me. So this way you can just keep it moving. When you're talking to that referral source and you're solidifying your own relationship, be accessible. Say, hey, if you ever reach out to sales and you're not getting a response, or maybe you got a voicemail, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, however you want. I'll be available and answer any questions that you have. No problem. Now your referral source has a second point of contact in the event that they need to answer very quickly. How do you want your patients managed? Well, sales already knows that. Sales, did you tell intake how that's going to be done so that intake can meet those expectations? If your doctor's saying that I need to make sure that my patients are seen within a month of seeing me. If intake didn't know that, how are they going to meet that expectation? Provide your hours of operation. I know this sounds simple, but it's a very big deal. By knowing when your intake is actually in the office to speak with it's very important. And it is a piece that gets overlooked. And I know it's simple, but it does get overlooked. Sales has different hours. Sometimes the nurses have different hours. They see patients differently. So when is a person that I can speak to about my patients available? And you provide that. You give your referral sources as much information as you possibly can, because you're feeding your intake. I've talked to so many different intake departments. The number one complaint is I'm not informed. We are the last people to hear. I didn't know we were doing this therapy now. I didn't know we had this contract now. I didn't know. And they're probably right. Maybe it was mentioned in passing, but nobody actually formally sat down and told them. So how do you expect those expectations to be met if they never knew? So that cohesive team comes back into play. Everybody come to this meeting, and I want everyone to put their piece of their information on the table. Some we're going to take and some we're not. But you want to be proactive in this business. Life moves very fast. Technology moves very fast. Medicine is moving even faster. So are you going to be proactive with that, or are you going to be reactive and wait for something and then work through it? Or are you going to try to bring your teams together and be ahead of the game? When you're overarching your knowledge, it's a beneficial tool that's utilized in all departments. I have learned so much from my pharmacy and my nursing department, and it has benefited the intake because I understood what I was doing, and vice versa. Pharmacists have come to me and said, I never knew why that was being done. Now I know. Now I know to make that one of my priorities. How is anybody going to know if we're not sharing the information? It's not just mine, it's ours. Our goal is to make sure that that patient gets on service safely, accurately, and for as long as possible. I hope I was able to provide some type of information that anyone can take away to better their already amazing team. Intake is it's a very tough department. Sometimes you don't know what you're walking into. Some days it's a happy community, and sometimes it's not. And it's not always going to be a positive feel, and it's not always going to be a negative feel. But what you can control is you can control how much your intake department knows to better their day, to better the process that they're doing. If your intake is just doing a process over and over and over again and not looking to make it better or put suggestions up or bring something else to the table, then maybe they're not being challenged enough. So look into that. Look into the fact that, well, what is not causing you to go that extra mile? Why didn't you ask for this? So it's all a matter of just opening up our eyes, communicating, and working together. At the end of the day, everybody's goal on this call or in this field is to service patients the best that we can and make sure that our patients are doing as well as possible. Nobody doesn't not want that, but how we get to that is very different. So what is the next company doing better than me? So we want to be out there.
Thank you so much, Kim. That was such great information about the role of intake. We do have one question. We're running a little bit over, so we'll go for that question and then do a wrap up here. This question is just curious if there's a list of foundations or something that you provide to help with financial assistance for patients.
Yes, and it's per your state, depending on the therapy that you're looking for any type of assistance, you can go to your state and you go to, like for me, for New Jersey, I would go to www.newjersey.gov. And in there, you will see all kinds of information from your state. For me, it's called Medicaid, New Jersey Medicaid. So New Jersey Medicaid will take you to a link of state assistance. It'll take you to foundations that are linked up with the state. You can go to social media. You could just Google in your area, foundations for, I'll make this one up, multiple sclerosis, foundations for MS in New Jersey. And there they are. A lot of them are free for patients. And they might not take the information from you as a provider, but it's definitely a number you can give to your patient.
Great, thank you, Kim. And thank you for sharing your knowledge with us on the important role of intake. As a quick reminder, to get CE, please follow the link in the follow-up email to take the short quiz within 24 hours. On deck for the summer series is a COVID-19 update for home and specialty infusion providers. For this presentation, NHIA will welcome back Dr. Amorosa to share updates on the virus, treatments, vaccines, and more. For those of you who tuned into her presentation in March, you know and recognize the depth of knowledge Dr. Amorosa shared with us. We are very excited to have her back. Okay, and now we have some really big news. Today, NHIA launched the Fellow Program, a prestigious new program that recognizes the contributions and achievements of highly accomplished home and specialty infusion professionals. In its inaugural year, the program will recognize selected participants for their industry excellence and provide them with an opportunity to foster and mentor future industry leaders. Both clinicians and non-clinical professionals in the home and specialty infusion industry that meet program requirements are encouraged to apply. Applications for the 2021 are now being accepted through September 15th. Thank you to Kim and everyone and all of our providers and suppliers who are working on the front lines to keep patients safely in their home. We are looking forward to bringing you more education each week during our summer series.